My name is Robert Walton. I'm an explorer by trade, and it was on my latest venture that I had the occasion to encounter a man floating on an ice floe. Over the course of several nights, he recounted to me his amazing journey and exploits. This is his story.
I am, by birth, a Javanese. While visiting Italy at the tender age of 5, my mother happened upon a child in the care of a poor couple, and with the child's best interest in mind, adopted her into our family. Elizabeth and I were from that day on intended to marry, and we grew to love one another. As a teenager, I discovered my passion for the natural sciences upon witnessing a fierce bolt of lightning destroy a tree in one mighty crash. I committed myself thereafter to learning all I could, and quickly found solace within the works of the great Cornelius Agrippa. After my mother surrendered herself to scarlet fever, I left for the university at Ingolstadt to further my studies. There I became a disciple of natural philosophy, and soon surpassed the skill and knowledge of my professors. It was then that I devoted my time to that ultimate mystery, the creation of life itself. Days turned into weeks. Weeks became months. Months passed into years as I watched my creation, molded in perfection, take form before me. I grew pale and hungry, but could not cease my efforts until I had seen them through. I earnestly hoped for the days when exercise and amusement would drive away incipient disease, and I promised myself both of these when my creation should be complete. It was on a dreary night of November that I beheld the accomplishment of my toils. But upon the creation's first twisted movements, I realized with horror what an atrocity my hands had crafted. I fled my lab, leaving the creature writhing on the floor. The next morning it had gone. I was overcome then with a terrible fear. Where had it gone? What would it do? Over the next few days my nervousness developed into a nearly deathly illness. After being nursed back to health, I was presented with a letter from my dearest Elizabeth that had arrived in the interim. In it she expressed her concern for my health, as well as my lack of correspondence. Over the next few days I tried my best to forget my ordeal. I found this nearly impossible, due in part to my daily presence to the scientific instruments utilized in my studies. On my return to my apartment one afternoon, I again found a letter waiting, this time from my father, bringing terrible news. My brother, William, had been found murdered. I made haste for Geneva, only to find the gates locked for the night. When I arrived, proceeding then through the woods to the scene of his death, I spotted a shape through the trees. I recognized it as the creature, and it dawned on me that it was William's murderer. Once I finally returned home, however, I learned that Justine Mortiz, a girl who had recently come to work in my father's house, was accused of the crime. Despite my pleas of her innocence, she was promptly tried, found guilty, and executed. I fell into a deep depression, overcome by guilt and the knowledge that my cowardice had resulted in the deaths of 2 of the people closest to me. My father, noticing the entire family's distress, decided that a getaway was in order. At our home in Bellerive, I began to experience a relief from my sorrows, amidst the beauty and serenity of the surrounding area. One day I decided to ascend to the summit of the nearby Montanvert, with the hope of ridding my conscience of its guilt once and for all. My curse, however, pursued me even there, and I encountered my creation once again. I was startled to hear it address me in a fluent English tongue. Nevertheless, I scorned the evil thing, and commanded it to leave me. The being, however, would not hear it. I, it said, was the cause of its torment and misery, and as creator, I had a responsibility to hear his plea. Thus he recounted his tale.
On my birth into this strange new world, I was overwhelmed with a flood of sensory input. My eyes saw for the first time, my fingers felt the cold floor anew. You ran from the being you crafted, leaving me to helplessly explore my newfound animation. In time, I came to understand these new sensations as well as many others. Through my observations of a family living in a small cottage in the woods, I learned how to communicate in your tongue, as well as the intricacies of human emotion. I was, however, discovered by the inhabitants and driven away. Once more a refugee, I happened upon a child, your William, in the woods. At first I approached him curiously, hearing that he was indeed your brother. I was filled with a horrible hatred that I had not yet known. Yes, Victor, I am the monster. I am your brother's murderer.
The monster, there ending his story, impressed on me his penultimate demand, that I should construct for him a mate in his image, lest he continue to be a scourge to mankind.
By this point, Frankenstein had grown weary and insisted on resting. Tomorrow, he promises to conclude his horrible tale.